Are you wondering about buying a new construction home in the DC metro area? Well, today we are going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the truth that comes with buying a home that is new construction. All right, so there used to be days where if you wanted a brand new build house, that you just went to one of the builders, you went to their office and you looked at what they had and you chose something, and you purchased in a subdivision. And that would have been wherever the subdivision was. And then in the 90s and the 2000s, people sort of started to chase not only like bigger houses, but also affordability. And these subdivisions started to, move along the commuting lines that we see, which, creates traffic where it is, right? People started going, further up in Montgomery County, further out in Northern Virginia, and you saw that this was really creating a pattern of where people were moving. And then there was sort of like a shift in a way to be like closer back, like back to the city. People's priorities started to realign, sort of coincided with the bubble. A lot of times, there was people that maybe lost their house and just said, I'm going to move into something smaller, right? So the new construction wasn't really a thing anymore and like really kind of fell out of favor for a few years in the area, although it was quietly sort of going in the background, just not with these big giant builders, all right? But then the market got better, right? And then we got COVID, right? So the market got better, people started moving around again, and then we got COVID and people's priorities completely shifted and realigned. So regardless of all of this, the landscape of new construction in the DC area and what that actually entails has really changed a lot over the last 20 to 30 years. And so we are going to talk about this so that you kind of have an idea of where everything has come from and where it is now. And for about 23, 24 years ago, I can't believe that's that long ago. I started working for a real estate developer in Maryland and became very familiar with how you develop land, where the land was being developed, how all of that worked with entitlements, and then worked for a couple builders in the area before I went to get my real estate license. So watching this and how it's unfolded, I think I can give you a pretty good sense of everything. So you're not going to find a lot of these like huge communities close to DC, right? Because as we said, people started to move further out, and that's where the new homes are. But what you do see now is that sort of these closer in areas that lost a lot of people that wanted to move farther out now have maybe like a little bit of a renewed interest at the jurisdictions that approve developments to approve maybe like some green space or some land that you could put 2, 5, 10 houses on that they hadn't approved before. And then you get somebody that comes in and they build houses there and what you call essentially, they call them infill lots, right? Like very small little lots where you can't do a lot. A large builder is not going to touch it because they're like, I'm not going to bring all my equipment out here to build 5 houses. But you do have smaller builders in the area that will do that. So you've got ways to find new construction in other areas, not just way out in the burbs in communities of 100 or more houses. So that said, let's talk about this. There's a couple different markets in which you can purchase a new construction home. And by the way, I'm Melissa Terzis, DC Real Estate Mama. I'm going to put my contact info up here, and I'll have it at the end of the video as well. If you've got any questions about things, just, let me know. All right, so the first area where you could find a new construction house is going to be the subdivisions out in the suburbs. I mean, that's what it is, right? So when you think new construction, if you're actually thinking tract housing, giant subdivisions, community centers, you're going to have to look pretty far from the city. There's actually a guide in this area called the New Homes Guide. You're going to be able to pick this up. You can get it for free. You can have them send it to you. And the New Homes Guide is going to maintain basically a list of all the communities where there are new homes being built. And so these are typically going to be big builder kind of homes, right? They're going to be the people that want economies of scale. So they're going to be building 50, 100, 200, 500 houses, and it might be real far out, but at least you'll be able to get a lay of the land. So these are the kind of places where you're going to have amenities, clubhouse, pool, recreation centers. They're going to be in Maryland and Virginia. You're not going to find this kind of thing in DC. Like I said, I worked for a couple builders. What I can say here is you're not going to get a custom product, but you're going to get a quality product for the most part. But you're not going to have a ton of flexibility in the building process. So you're going to go, they're going to have plans, you're going to be able to pick off the plans. You may have a couple little options like an optional morning room, right, which is off the back of the kitchen, or an optional 2-floor bump out to give you extra square footage. But as far as making architectural changes to the house. No, you're going to have to buy off the plans that they have. These plans are things that they've built over and over. They've worked out kinks in them. They've got, they've got this thing down to a science. So you're going to get a good house, and you're going to get something that they're used to building that they're not going to hopefully have a lot of issues on. So things to know when you go to one of these communities. Number one, very important. Yes, you can bring your agent. These communities and these builders will work with a real estate agent. And yes, the builders would typically pay the commission for us. So you get our help without having to pay for it yourself. You should have an agent with you who is familiar with working with new builders, right? The large builders, the regional and national builders. Why? Why do you want that? Because they can tell you the traps when you're buying new construction. So builders don't make a ton of money on the base price of the house, believe it or not. If you just go in and buy the base price of the house, the builder's probably making like a 15% profit. But where they really make their money is with excellent markups that they negotiate on options and upgrades, okay? So some of these things are worth it, some of these things are not worth it. So these are things that you want to go in and sort of have an agent with you to talk about and to explain to you, here's what will happen if you attempt to do this option or upgrade on your own. Here's what will happen if you have it done with the builder, and kind of give you at least an idea of how overpriced or fairly priced it may be. They're rarely fairly priced, unfortunately. Okay, so the next market that you could find yourself looking for new construction in would be a smaller community. So when you think new construction, if you actually cringe at the idea of what we just described with a subdivision, you cringe at cookie cutter, there are a host of local builders in the area who build anywhere from a few homes a year to maybe even a few hundred. There's like dozens of these types of builders who have made a very good living and a very good business and have a very good reputation in the area doing what they do. So you're going to find custom builders who might do 3 or 4 houses a year, and that's it. And then you're going to find larger builders who do the 20 to 100 homes. So these builders typically work off plans that they own and are like probably what you can call semi-custom. You can make some changes to the plans, but usually not a ton of changes, and usually not anything structural aside from maybe an optional sunroom or a bump out. Because of the small size, these communities are not going to have amenities. These homes are typically going to be in more established residential and potentially commercial areas. Might be like I described earlier in the intro, it's like a parcel of land that has been overlooked, or a developer who was able to work out an agreement with the jurisdiction for approval that maybe other people weren't able to do. Sometimes there are pieces of land where 10 developers have attempted to get it approved and they all fail, and then the 11th developer comes in with a suggestion and then they agree and they make it happen. And I know that these things happen because I'm married to one smarty pants developer who was able to make this happen for different pieces of land around the DC area. So, all right, let's do things to know on this one. So things to know, yes, you can bring your agent with you, and yes, usually the builder is going to pay the commission or some portion of it. Smaller builders are generally more flexible with you. They also are going to view you as a client, not just as a customer that they're going to say to you, like, sign here, take it or leave it, tough crap if you don't like what we offer. They really are more invested in, like, they want your friends to come by there, right? They're more invested in building a relationship, and as such, they might be more willing to work with you as well. So the third market where you can find yourself new construction is actually going to include a lot more legwork for you, but that is what we call a tear down. So if neither of the prior two options sound appealing to you for getting into a brand new house, then you can do what we call as a tear down, which is you might be able to find a house in, an existing retail residential area that's like a very hotly desired piece of land, and you buy a house that is for whatever reason, the floor plan is defunct, or it's just the whole house, maybe it has just way too much work that's needed, or the house is small for what the lot is and you can build a bigger house there. You tear this house down. So this has become wildly popular here, and there's certain areas where it's really, really popular. And you can pretty much make this happen anywhere you want, as long as the jurisdiction is okay and you're not tearing down like a historic structure or anything like that. So things to know about this. Finding a tear down, it can actually be a full-time job. This is why builders make a really great profit when they buy a home and then they rebuild a new house on the lot. This isn't usually something that you find publicly. It typically entails like door-to-door visits, phone calls, lots of personal conversations with people to actually find a house. It's rare that you're going to see it in like MLS or, like multiple listing like we have. They do exist, they do happen, but it's often going to be priced higher than what's going to make sense for a tear down. So that's something that you need to consider as well. All right, so let's talk about new construction in DC. You're not going to see a ton of tear downs in DC. You're not really going to see a lot of new construction in DC. You will see tear downs in some neighborhoods, but for the most part, you're not going to see a lot of this. What you will see though is like, with the case of row houses, you'll see like a down to the studs renovation. It's not really possible to tear down a row house and start over because it's attached to the two houses that are next to it. So that's what you'll see there. And a lot of times you'll see that somebody who is doing this calls themselves a developer. They're not really a developer. They're not developing anything, right? Like I told you before, like my smarty pants husband is a true developer. He fights for zoning. He brings in utilities. He gets roads paved. I mean, he has to go to zoning meetings and kiss adjacent neighbors' butts because they bought a property and thought that, those 180 million acres of rolling hills that they don't own next door was just going to stay vacant forever. And he has to fight with these people even though they have no financial interest in the property. Like, that's a developer. That's what they do. These guys are, I don't want to quite call them flippers because a down to the studs renovation done well and done properly is key. In DC, you want to make sure that everything is permitted on this because scandal found out that lots of these things were not permitted and lots of these people were sort of fly-by-night contractors, and these houses, like, there was a whole investigation. Anyway, just stick with me on this. We're going to make sure that everything is permitted and approved and that they didn't do anything that they weren't supposed to do or without the proper permitting. So what you're going to see here at best is going to be, a builder. They're going to be a home builder. At worst, you're going to see a house flipper. Okay, that's somebody who comes in, puts the lipstick on a pig, and then gets rid of it. Flipping has a very negative connotation here, mostly due to the fact that the whole permit process in DC is as much of a literal train wreck as Britney Spears' now deleted Instagram. Anyway, that's that. So there's definitely different ways to go here. You will find tear downs in some neighborhoods, but for the most part, it's like a version of a flip. Now, new construction in Maryland and Virginia, this is obviously different because they have much more of a geographic area. The classic subdivision has moved further out. Most of Montgomery County on the Maryland side of the river and Arlington, Alexandria, Fairfax on the Virginia side, mostly already developed. You're not going to find much of the 100-plus house subdivision here. You'll find infill lots and you'll find opportunities for tear downs. And like I said, you do see things pop up like 5 to 10 house communities, or, zoning gets changed on something, or they decide that they, will now allow somebody to build in an area that they wouldn't. And you will see some of these smaller communities. If you want land, if you want space, if you want community amenities like a clubhouse, a pool, you're likely going to be moving, and you want it new construction, you're likely going to be moving further out. Think Frederick County now in Maryland. Yes, that's where it's going. You're going to be out Loudoun, Prince William County out in Virginia, and even then a lot of that has been developed as well. Western Loudoun County is more rural than like Eastern Loudoun County, which is closer to DC, obviously. But you will see that you're going to find like the bigger subdivisions, the big builders are building out there. So that is my spiel on new construction in DC, the DC metro area. If you have any questions, please let me know. My contact info is going to be at the end of the video. I'm always happy to help you with this stuff. This was kind of like my wheelhouse and how I got into the real estate industry, like I said, 23 years ago. Melissa Turs checking out.